I see that it's good to go. All right, so it's good to go. So you should be able to fold back onto your channel and hit the go live button. It might take a second to pop up the stream.
There it is.
And then we can hit go live.
All right.
Awesome.
It's happening.
It's gonna be great. It is. We're doing the thing. You know, whether we like it or not. Hey, I always say, and now that we're on air, maybe I shouldn't bring up this story, but I have to say, and you know, we did one with Jim Gaffigan, and for probably the first 20 minutes, we were just trying to get his audio to work, and it was quite interesting, just doing it live, as they say, you know. Scott, you're kind of halving it in there. Do you have something wrong with your other eye? You don't want to be fully in the screen, or do I have just you so tight with these circles?
You gave me a black eye.
I did, yeah.
No?
Yeah, so I'm like on top of her.
We're gonna snuggle.
We're gonna have to like do like the Christmas parade
if you want. So it's just gonna be the two of us on here. So I could go to a different layout if you want.
No,
I liked the bubbles, but I can hold on. Let's like.
You don't want us to just sit on. Like I can sit on his lap. You want me to?
We can do this.
We can do squares. I could do. Look at this. Look at this. We'll do. Oh, this is weirder on the wide angle. We'll have to do this.
Hello.
We'll do this. We got some folks rolling in here. We got some folks. Hey, as you're rolling in, everybody, let us know where you're from as I try and pull up the Instagram live stream. We got some folks from Colorado in here.
On the Instagram, on the Highwire Instagram, Jason Stanhope has joined, which is very exciting for us.
Absolutely. I love this. I'm really excited for you all to be on, because as we're kind of learning by doing some of these lives, some people are newer, and we'll get into this in a little bit. Some people are newer to the alt grains, I should say, right? And we just came off of 2 days of blue corn. I don't know if you guys have been doing the calendar too, but we didn't have anybody on to look at this guy now. He's gonna make it seem like he actually cares. If he did, he'd show up here in the, you know.
Where is he?
He's on the Bourbon Pursuit stream, stealing the viewers.
Yeah,
that could be here. That's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. Yeah. They're talking about some of the favorite pours of the year, which no doubt will include, I would think, some Jimmy Red products in general. If I know Ryan, because he's tried everything that we've been bringing in this year, and we'll get to that too. I'm not trying to get ahead of myself, but look at this. We got Tulsa metro area checking in here, and I still have not opened up this feed that I wanted to for the chat. I'm gonna get there. Let's get over here. Let's do a little YouTube action. That's not it. Let's go to this tab, and we're gonna pop over to this. I'm curious to see if we're gonna see Dave pop in. You know, I thought maybe he sometimes pops into the Bourbon Pursuit channel, so he's on the channel around this time, and I'm curious if we're gonna see him hop over. Okay, now I got took me forever, but I've got my YouTube chat pulled up. Oh, we got Blake drinking the Highwire we did, so that's good. It's not here not what we're tasting here in the calendar though, but that's all right. We've got some Mystic popping in here. Well, yeah, we got folks rolling in, so this is good. Let's go ahead and dive right into this too. Let me just do a quick intro on my side. So for anyone who hasn't joined in the live so far, my name is Brian. I run a lot of the media stuff here at Seelbach, do a lot of the picks, and am glad to be walking you all through day 8 of the Advent calendar. Well, I'm not going to. Ann and Scott are going to be doing that from Highwire. If you all see over, it's off right now. Hold on, we'll get it. It's coming. It's coming. If you see this banner, then that's going to take you. So anyone who is actually with us because they got the Advent calendar, every page has a QR code that'll take you to the products. But if anyone who's just tuning in doesn't have access to that, this catalog right here takes you to the Advent calendar listing and all the different products. So you can kind of follow through some details or just see the types of bottles that have been or will be in the catalog so far. And we're really excited about day 8 specifically because Ann and Scott are joining us. I know that I feel a little bit bad because I know that Blake's got a longer history with you all, and maybe you all will be able to shed some light on that in light of him being here. However, over the last few years, you all have continued to put out what I would say is some of the best whiskey, not just craft produced, although that is true, but just some of our favorite whiskeys that we've been able to try, from single barrels to some of your all's regular expressions. This one here that we're going to be trying today. So I want to thank you all for being on the show, and I'll pass it over to you all for a little bit, and to introduce yourselves and the brand.
Awesome. Do you want to kick it off?
There you go.
I always have to clarify for those who might not be as familiar with our brand as others that Scott and I are married. We are business partners and life partners. So if we interrupt each other or give each other side eye or poke each other with our elbows, then that's just par for the course. We started Highwire in 2013 here in Charleston, South Carolina. Really wanted to make a big difference in this community, in our agricultural community. We hired the late great Dave Pickerell to consult for us in those first months, really even before we opened. And Dave spent 4 days with us just fire hosing information into our brains. I think we each filled an entire notebook with the information he gave us. And we were intimidated, to say the least, but really just jacked to start the journey. And the last thing Dave said to us on his way out the door after that week was, "You can't out maker's mark. Don't do it. Don't try it." And we were like, looked at each other and we were like, oh, the whiskey program was definitely the most daunting thing that we were facing down because of the aging requirement, because of the capital required to just place your bets and start loading barrels. And so we knew that we didn't want to do anything that was going to be like anyone else. We really took Dave's advice to heart and met a guy named Glenn Roberts pretty soon after we started. He owns Anson Mills in Columbia. He is like the grain brain of the U.S. I mean, he's just an amazing human. Has been with us really every step of this journey. And he was the first to turn us on to James Island Red Corn, or Jimmy Red Corn, which is in your glass tonight, day 8. James Island is just south of Charleston, beautiful Sea Island community. And Jimmy Red Corn was grown there for decades before we ever got our hands on it. It almost went into extinction, got down to 2 cobs of corn that were painstakingly brought back to life by a man named Ted Tuning down in Walterboro, South Carolina. And Ted passed some of the seed on to Glenn. And we were lucky enough to have Glenn really bless us with enough seed in 2014 to grow 2.5 acres of Jimmy Red Corn. So that's really the origin story of how we started working with this corn. It's been a long journey. That 2.5 acres has turned into over 400 acres in annual production, with a average harvest of just over 1 million pounds of grain. So that's a lot of whiskey corn. It is one of the most flavorful corns we have ever encountered in our lives. Both of us have culinary backgrounds. Scott certainly a very extensive culinary background, being a Culinary Institute trained baker, and having many food businesses before this. So it's been a wild ride. Scott, do you want to talk a little bit more about the corn itself?
Well, just to clarify, the bottled and bond, actually most of our expressions are 100% corn. So bourbon, that is. And really, that wasn't by design, to be honest. When we first started, that first 2 acres, we made 2 batches. And we said, well, let's, the flavoring grain is typically wheat or rye. And I was like, well, why is it wheat or rye? Why not? What does the corn do? And I thought, well, maybe, different corn will maybe do something different. So that was sort of the whole beginning. And I thought, well, let's make 100% corn mash and sort of see how it tastes, and then we can decide which flavoring grain to put with it. And we really did that for a couple of years, and people were like, this is so different and so unique, and it doesn't necessarily taste like it's 100% corn. So we messed around. We made some wheated, and we made some with rye. And I don't know if you guys know Bill Thomas at Jack Rose. He came in early on and tasted some of the wheated, and he was like, I like the 100% corn better. I mean, let's face it, everybody's got their flavor profile they like. And so we just sort of had to settle in on something. So we started making 100% corn bourbon, and about 3 years into it, we shared a house at an event with Julian Van Winkle and his wife Sissy, and Julian and I were sitting up one night, and he said, tell me about this red corn you guys are using. And I said, and he's like, tell him a little bit about it. And then he said, would you send me some of the White Dog? I'd like to try it. So we packed up a flask and sent it over. And that Friday when he got the flask, my phone, I left it on my desk, and I walked over, and we don't talk on the phone regularly or anything like that, but my phone had 2 missed calls and a text message from Julian that says, call me. So I call him, and he says, hey, I got your whiskey, and I got to say, my mind's kind of blown. What's your flavoring grain, wheat or rye? And I said, it's 100% corn. And he's like, are you sure? And I was like, I'm sure. So he's like, what kind of yeast do you use, and what kind of barrels? You're not using those small barrels, are you? And what's your entry proof? And he's asking a fair amount of technical questions. So I knew he wasn't just sort of humoring me. And he goes on to say, you know what, your White Dog is some of the best I've ever had. He's like, there's a lot going on, and I would swear there's wheat or rye, and we get that a lot because of that spice in the corn. When you taste the White Dog, there is spice in that White Dog. It's kind of hard to explain, but there's this starchiness or doughiness. I went into the distillery this weekend, and I walked through, and I was like, it almost smells like bread, kind of proofing, if you will. So, or dough. And so, it's pretty cool. Blake was actually in for this recently. He was picking some single barrels with Dave Jennings, and going through, and we had the proof, age, and then the farm name. And a lot of people don't realize that we barrel by farm. So it's not only a single barrel, it's a single farm. And we just did it. We weren't really trying to necessarily do anything. We knew it might be kind of cool eventually if there was a difference. And we were tasting through those flights with those guys, and Blake's like, these are different farms. And it's like, yes. And so Dave, you can't break that set up. You have to buy both of those because, that's really cool that they do it by farm. So we've never done this. So recently we actually put in our own tasting room a single farm series of single barrels, and we did 3 farms. And I can tell you, we tasted through multiple barrels from the different farms, and there was distinct. I mean, you don't have to have a super palate. It's distinct differences between those. So we're just sort of in a new discovery here. So Bottled and Bond, or Classic, which is our flagship whiskey, is going to be a batch or a blend of typically 5 to 10 barrels. Most typical as of lately, 5 to 7 barrels. and that's going to be from probably 2 to 3 of those farms. And so we've got some vanilla from one farm, and we've got like spice from another, and we've got like peanut brittle or nut brittle from another. And we really can kind of create that, call it like mise en place or whatever, using a culinary term, to sort of create that flavor profile. So we're just starting to have a lot of fun with it. This, we moved into our new building in early 20, with new equipment, more capacity. So right now we have 5-year-old barrels coming at us every week, which is really exciting. And, we're starting to roll into, of course, 26. So next year we'll have a lot more 6-year-old barrels. So what you're tasting, we've kind of moved the bottle and bond up in age. We, unlike a lot of whiskey companies, we actually make our own stuff. So, we kind of live by that, the fact that we're a young company, and we're just sort of riding that age wave, if you will. So that's really all, and bottle and bond, as you guys all know, for a craft distiller, that's tough to get to. I mean, it's like being in a same season by a same distiller. And, not only do we make it and wait, we actually grow it. Then we make it. Then so there's a waiting period of growing it, then making it, then waiting it. So if you have a 4-year-old whiskey from us, it's like we started that venture 5 years ago, so we just grow it. So anyway, that's
the one thing that I remember from when I visited, because I went down, this was as soon as like some of the double oaks were rolling out. I don't remember if we picked a double oak then, but I know we picked a single barrel. And one of the things, I didn't get to spend much time with Ann because you were in the office with the dog, right? Or dogs, I don't even remember. But
the dog is right under.
Yeah,
she's right. I love it. I love it. But I feel like, we've had a couple of these streams where like some of them, they were timed fine. A couple of them, it's like, wow, these went for a decent time. I felt I left. I never told you this, but I left that trip, and we were my wife's family vacations in Seelbach. And so, we were down for there. So I drove up to do that. And on my drive back, I was just telling Blake, I said, Blake, I had my video stuff. I had all my stuff. And I just wish I recorded everything that Scott said, because you started going into all these details that are fascinating. And I hope that people who are in the stream are picking up on some of the stuff too. So this is not the first bottled and bond that we've had so far in here for the calendar, but 100% corn, and then to be red corn, and then what I love about the bottle and bond product in general is just that I love ones that have more viscosity than you would think they should at 100 proof. And I think this has it. And that's what I appreciate about all of your all's expressions, because I love the single bears we get to try, and I love the weeded, but like even in your all's, even in the flagship, even in this bottled and bond, these are just really, really great flavors. I want to pull back just real quick about the different farms, because that, again, I hope that someone else in one of these chats' mind's kind of blowing too, because we have in one way or another talked with different folks, not through this calendar, but just in general or on other podcasts or whatever, who they're using barrel, or they're using finishing staves to manipulate their profile. They're using locations of the rick house to manipulate profiles, right? You hear those kind of things, and you're talking about using different farms because of where, what kind of profiles you're noticing from those. Real quick, just to kind of give a snapshot to people, how far apart are some of these farms from one another? Are we talking 20 miles, 100 miles, 1 mile?
We have used a total of 8 farms as sources since the beginning, and I would say probably the furthest distance between any 2 of them is probably 140 miles. Early on, we used a farm down in the Ace Basin, which is sort of one of 2 of South Carolina's deltas, the culmination of the Ashpere, the Combahee, and the Edisto rivers. And that was really our first education in terroir. And over and over and over again, we would hear people say there's no such thing as terroir in spirits. And we just couldn't quite, we weren't ready to accept that as truth. And that's really why we started barreling by farm. Honestly, in the beginning, we barreled by farm because we didn't have that many farms working with us. It was always one or two. And as we grew and really developed that Jimmy Red agricultural playbook that helped farmers understand, like, this is the recipe for success. This is the row spacing. This is the seed spacing. This is the water program. These are the natural inputs you can use. This is a natural way to fertilize. And just kind of how you treated that corn and how you planted it to offset any genetically modified grain that was growing in its vicinity. There's a lot of very careful planning that has to be done when you're working with an heirloom. And then as we got into, I think the earliest, early 20, we went to the World Whiskey Forum in Seattle, and Dave Broom had asked us to present on our farm program, essentially. So we had done a series of experiments using gas chromatography and soil samples, and had pulled samples from 4 farms and distillate from 4 farms, and did this extremely nerdy rabbit hole presentation on the different flavor nuances from each farm, just using White Dog. And we never dreamed that the flavor nuances of each farm would survive the barrel, because the barrel is such an imposing presence, and largely why most distilleries talk the most about their barrel program or their water, and never about the grain. It's just in the last 5 or 6 years that big distilleries have started talking about their grain program. And it's because there really hasn't been one. It's mostly 99% number 2 yellow dent corn used. There might be some people toying around with an heirloom yellow. And then, Balcones, I think, was really the first distillery that really raised a flag on blue corn to great acclaim. And all of that really got us thinking. I was on the board of the Slow Food Upstate when we lived in Greenville, South Carolina, and that exposed us both to the art of taste and just this other world of ingredients, and kind of how America had lost flavor in the modernization of agriculture. And so that was really a starting point for us. We came out of the natural products industry. We were very used to speaking in terms of non-GMO, in terms of all natural and organic, and had a really close relationship with a lot of farms and a lot of our sources with the prior business. And it just, we had a high bar set for ourselves already. So, the farm programs were very important, and we really believed in flavor. And I think that, we started barreling by farm, not only because we were only using a few farms, but also because we were just not ready to close the book on the terroir argument. And we thought maybe someday we would be able to prove it out. And like Scott said, that, each farm really has a flavor personality, and we're able to use that. But really the baseline characteristics of Jimmy Red, even as White Dog, baking spice, that creamy mouthfeel. There's so much natural oil in this corn that really coats the alcohol in the spirit. So most of our spirits drink 10 points lower than what the proofreading might be in your brain. Or on the label. So if it's a 107, which our double oak is, a lot of people think that it's just really, really smooth for 107. Our single barrel expressions that might come out between 118 and 124 are really, really smooth. Again, just drink a lot lower than what your expectation would be for something that's that high proof.
Yeah, I agree. I see a few questions just to clarify. We do sweet mash. So, you guys are probably all familiar, not sour mash. So we don't put back set on the sweet mash. The reason that's done is you're just trying to lower the pH without using, expensive chemicals or something like that. So that's why, it started many, many years ago. And probably, back when they did it originally, it was just sort of right there. So pretty ease of use. But basically, you're trying to ward off bacteria. And the other way to ward off bacteria is just to sanitize your equipment. So we use stainless equipment. We do a clean in place system, and ultimately just clean everything. And our pH is usually in the 5 to 5.5 range in the beginning. We ferment at about, we do a controlled fermentation in stainless at around 81 degrees, which is on the lower side for distilled spirits. We find that the flavor doesn't get as wild, and we don't get bitterness and things of that nature. And then I saw a question about cooperage. We've definitely, just like all folks like us, small guys, danced around, played around with a lot of yeast strains, but also different cooperages. And a friend of ours, Steve Mathiasen, wine guy out in Napa, was at our house a few years ago, and he was tasting some of our watermelon brandy, which we had made, as sort of a fun one-off. And he was just blown away by that. So we were talking about, whiskey and what kind of barrels do you use? And I said, well, we don't use the fancy barrels like you guys use. Our barrels are like, whiskey barrels, they're kiln dried. And he's like, ooh, why not air seasoned? And I said, yeah, that, there's no coopers in the whiskey side of things doing that. So he goes, well, you need a minimum of 3 years air seasoned, in my opinion. You should try to get your cooper to do that. And if not, I can introduce you to some coopers. So about that time, serendipity kind of walked in, and we had a cooperage called Charrois or Hermitage asking us about trying some of their barrels. So we got 2 American oak char 3 air season 36-month Minnesota oak, and we had our Kelvin kiln dried barrels. And I'd called Kelvin about this, and they said, oh yeah, we don't do air seasoned, that's the wine. And I said, well, but my wine friend said that we should be using air seasoned. He said, well, that's not a thing in whiskey. Wine and whiskey are different. And I'm like, well, how is that? Because ultimately this liquid's in contact with this. This is an ingredient ultimately. So we tried that just to sort of see, and, tasted it along the way. And in the meantime, we just said, you know what, let's just start buying some of these air season barrels. So we went to 36-month air season barrels in 2019, and we've never used anything but. And now Kelvin got bought by Hermitage. So they do air season, Speyside does air season, Independent Stave does air season, and they all say these make so much better whiskey,
Yes, that's right.
I mean, we've always sort of taken nods from our wine friends. We don't look, we're not in Kentucky. Full disclosure, I had never been to Kentucky until 2021. And
great wine scene here, a lot of vineyards.
Yeah. So I just thought, I don't know. We were a bit in a vacuum. So we're food people. We have, like I say, a lot of winemaker friends. And really for us, I was interested in, there again, sort of pulling out that raw flavor from that agriculture. We like to say we're an agriculturally focused distillery, and, focusing on those varietals, but also thinking about that farming. We do no-till farming. Our soil, we can't spray a bunch of chemicals and things of that nature. So there's earthworms in our soil. And we do believe that makes a difference. And
we do good soil prep. So we get what's lovingly referred to as quap from Manchester Farms, which is the largest quail farm in the country that's privately owned. And that soil dressing really helps prepare the soil for planting. And they're good friends of ours just up the road in Columbia, South Carolina. And that, it's just being innovative and really great care happening in absolutely every step of the process. Scott was talking about cooperage. Our barrel entry proof is about 110 on average. That's pretty low for industry standards. We have a barrel warehouse that sits behind the gates at the Navy Yard up in North Charleston, and it's 150 feet from a beautiful salt creek and salt marsh. So all that soft marsh air is drifting through that warehouse every day. We were a little bit nervous about Charleston's climate because we had a lot of very knowledgeable people tell us that we were going to struggle with aggressive aging issues because Charleston could go, today's low is 31, but in 3 days it might be 78 degrees outside. So that's a lot of exercise for the barrels and the spirit. We don't really get a solid rest like in Kentucky. There's months of a hard rest. But it hasn't. The oldest barrel we have in house right now is 10 years old, and it's really delicious. We're trying to figure out when it's gonna make its debut, but a lot of inventory climbing up there. So we're really excited to see it mature. And for all the years that we de-emphasized barrel, now we're really, really excited to see how that barrel aging is coming into play against the natural flavors of Jimmy Red, because we are seeing a really incredible evolution of flavors. And I would even say that it's harder for us to detect. Scott and I can pretty much blind taste barrels on farms right now. So we have challenged each other endlessly. We've had a lot of people challenge us at tastings to name the farm. And we're pretty accurate with it. But it's been remarkable. I think that between 2 and 4 years old, I think it's harder to taste the actual farm provenance than it is at 6 or 7. And that's really interesting. I'm not sure what that's about, but it just feels like in the last few years, as we've tasted through that aging inventory, that we're able to we have a very developed notion of which characteristics belong to which farm.
When you all talk about the red corn variety, when you talk about your culinary background, when you talk about how it seems like it can aid in the mouthfeel and just overall flavor, just in general, if you were tasting like a different whiskey, do you all taste whiskey or anything like as if it's a meal, like as if you're like tasting it more heartily than just drinking something?
Yeah, I mean,
is that a weird question to ask?
No, well, I think I drink wine that way. I mean, I feel like that, and actually what's happened is making whiskey has made me more of a wine kind of person, oddly. I can smell a glass of wine. Used to I'd hear people say, "Oh, I smell, there's a lot of oak on this," and I'm like thinking, well, what does that smell like? I mean, I know what oak smells like, but what, and now I can take a red wine that's had a lot of oak on it. I can smell it and go, man, this is an oaky wine. It's got, I think
we've kind of, with a lot of, let's call it traditional bourbon flavor profiles, I always had a catalog I'm a child, I was born in 79, so I'm a child of the 80s largely. But I think that the profiles to me are all kind of 80s candies and cereals for mainstream bourbon. And I always enjoyed that ride too. But I think what's interesting with a lot of the craft experimentation that's happened in the last 5 to 10 years is there's lots of interesting areas of the flavor wheels that are getting expanded. And I think that has to do with these heritage crops that are being experimented with, and they may not be out there on a large scale. What we've done with Jimmy Red, and just by virtue of really focusing on one specific varietal, is very unusual in the craft world. There are very few other distilleries that have, sort of that bank of single grain inventory, but we have experienced a lot of distilleries that are, experimenting with, 10 barrels of this, 10 barrels of that. And I think there are just some really interesting culinary explorations happening. And that's really when you think about the origin of distillation, it was just another form of preservation, of putting up crops that were excess, putting up crops that were getting ready to go bad, and just really trying to reap the value of what you had worked hard for in that growing season. And that meant that every farm had a provenance of grain or fruit that was being preserved for that season. And it's my finest daydream to think about all the flavors that were available, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when this entire country was actively putting up agriculture in that way. And we've lost so much with Prohibition. So much was destroyed. And I think that the joy of the last, 2 decades of craft distilling has been seeing those flavors restored to the glass, and really in tandem with having those flavors restored to the plate with incredible chefs who are really also along for that ride and along for that exploration of what would this have tasted like, and that's I think more and more so we're really having fun with that culinary approach with other brands. I don't think it has been there as much prior to the craft boom.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I continue when we were not distillers. I had never distilled anything when we got into this business. We were brewing beer at our house, home brewing, and I was a baker, so I had fairly decent knowledge of grains and things like that. But ultimately, when I was reading all the in those days forums of people starting out, this would have been in like 2010, 2011, I was seeing people saying, well, 80% of the flavor comes from the barrel. I was like, that's kind of discouraging. It's like, how do you make something different? How do you bring something new to the table? And I can just tell you that that's not true. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe if you're all using the same thing, or sort of the same thing, same base, it's hard to differentiate. But I can, like Ann said, Aaron Goldfarb, I don't know if he knows who this guy, writer. We were in New York recently, and there was a single barrel in the bar, travel bar in Brooklyn, and Aaron saw a single barrel because we were telling him about this sort of farm thing, and he picked up this single barrel. And we don't tell what farm the single barrels are from, which shame on us. We're gonna note to self, but he picks up this this bottle, and pours a little bit, and he goes, "Which farm is this?" and shoves a glass in my face, and I'm like, I think it's Lavington. And then he pours some more and goes over to Ann, who's across the room, and says, "Which farm is this?" and she goes, "It's Lavington." And he goes, "Oh my God." And it's like, yes. And so that you'd think we've kind of been hit on the head with this, but it's like, it's exciting. This is exciting new territory for us. So, we've played around with lots of varietals of corn, lots of varietals of wheat, lots of varietals of rye. We distilled some Carolina Gold rice recently, 100% Carolina Gold rice, which is grown all around here. And we've distilled tomatoes. We've distilled watermelons. We make a peach brandy. So we're definitely, into discovery. So when these things kind of come along, it's like, whoa, the barrel isn't 80%, man. Maybe but it's helping kind of separate and bring those layers forward, which, I love barrels. I mean, they're definitely a great advantage in that oxidation and sort of that, flavors, wood sugars and things of that nature. So, it's definitely part of the dance. And
really, it's those brandies and the agricole we used to make. We've not made one in a very long time, but the brandies really were the first things that lit the light bulb of, wait a minute, like you can't, like, brandies are so delicate that it's really easy to mess them up. And just understanding the different flavors we were working with. I think the agricole was the first thing that we really, really explored terroir with, first. It was because we were growing sugarcane down in the Ace Basin, and we were growing sugarcane up in the PD, which is more of a hard sand delta. The Ace Basin is more of like what we call pluff mud down here. Delta is very fine, almost oily type, thick deposits that were laid down millions of years ago. And also the Ace Basin farm we were working with was a former rice plantation. So they had all the gates, and they would flood the farm with brackish water. So the soil had a lot of salt in it. And that brininess really translated through the agricole that we were making. And that was definitely like the very first just knock us backwards. Like, these things are very different. The process was very much the same. And we just didn't dream that, like I said, we just didn't dream it was the bourbon making process was going to allow for those flavors to shine through. And that's why we just weren't really focused on it until we started, now that our inventory's gotten a lot deeper. We've got about 5,500 barrels in inventory. But now that we've got this depth of inventory and the groups of barrels that are eligible for a bottled and bond batch or for a 7-year-old batch are a lot bigger. So we're tasting through a lot more barrels that are about the same age, that are coming from 3 or 4 farms, and that tasting education that we really have not had the benefit of having before, because it's kind of always been like, well, these 4 barrels are kind of qualified to be in this batch together. That's just the process of being a young distillery. And even though we're, 13 years old now, we're still a very young distillery.
Yeah, it's interesting. And not to pass up any conversation about your brandies, but you did kind of skip over, Scott, when you were talking about the fact that you got the peach brandy finished bourbon, which is also lights out. As we're getting, I always pull it out around Thanksgiving. That's not right. I always pull it out around Derby time. For the mint juleps, right? But anyway. All the products are great. There are a couple questions in here too. I don't know. I want to be mindful of your all's time too, because we've gone a little over 40 minutes now. So I don't want you all to feel pressure to stay, but you got some folks in here getting nerdy, but you also didn't really talk about the still stuff. And so I thought this one would be worthwhile to bring up, because you all have both systems in the distillery, right?
Yeah. We use a Carl still. Our bigger still is 8,000 liter, roughly 2,300 gallon. We do on the grain, like I mentioned, sweet mash. It is a pot with a line arm, sort of a traditional pot with a line arm that is angled down, and sort of like the Seelbach logo. It looks a lot like that. But then there is a 4-plate hybrid, column there. The beauty of this still, though, versus our old still, is that we can bypass that column and go straight into condenser if we want. So, great question. We have never done that. And, it's definitely on the wish list. You'd think we make the same. We make Jimmy Red about 80% of the time every day. You'd think we would start to experiment more with that. It's been, we're messing around with how much water we put in the mash to fermentation temperatures. We do use enzymes. I see a question there. We're using enzymes. And like I say, we've done sour mash. We also make the sweet mash. There's a million different variables, and so we've been sort of slowly stepping towards. Now we've done pot distillations in a small batch before. We have a little bitty experiment still, basically, that we've used over the years. I wouldn't say it's a great comparison probably to what the Carl would do. So we are anxious to try that out. The problem will be, of course, we're going to have to do like 4 or 5 runs on that pot and then do a spirit run after that. So good. Stay tuned, I guess, is the best question. And just to be clear, we have a deflimator up at the top of the plates. So, that sort of pre-condenser, we don't chill it. We're coming off the still at about an average of about 140. So it's, on the lower side for a hybrid, but it's still a single pass.
Yeah. And I'm going to just jump just because I saw some comments back before too, and they were talking about the sampling, the stuff for the farm. I don't remember if this is what you were saying, like you have the ability to taste these sort of things at the tasting room, but just for people to know, and not to, I've said this before in the other lives for this too. I'm not just trying to fold back and plug products, but it's hard for me not to do that with your all stuff, because even when you all probably didn't see all this stuff, but like when I went through and I was doing my end of the year list last year and trying to figure out where to put all these Jimmy Red products, because we had there was the single barrel you had in the Lost Lantern collection that I thought was just dynamite. What farm did that one come from? Do you remember what that cask was that was in there? That's a hard one.
Yeah.
I'll send you a sample. of it to pull that up.
It was
they had.
If we weren't on my computer, I could look it up.
We have that bottle. Adam and Nora sent us a bottle.
Oh, it's so good.
I'll look it up and send you that, because now that
oh my gosh, we get 4 emails a week with what farm is this?
Yeah, now
it's the best kid.
Honest,
sorry, Blake, 2 of those are from me.
Once you
Blake's
guys,
fault.
Once you guys started this, we're continuing. We've got people that have 10 and 15 different single barrels. They're now collecting these sort of, like I would call them, horizontals as opposed to verticals, because they're the different farms. And that's really, there again, we're sitting here with a whole slew of barrels, over 5,000 barrels of these different farms. And
every single barrel has a farm name on it.
And we have single barrels in our tasting room, and we've sold single barrels to you guys and never told you which farm it was from.
Right.
So it's like, so there's a bunch of, sort of exciting, like I say, from here forward, we're going to be talking about it more.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I think it's cool. I also apologize. I know it's a little annoying, so I apologize, but it is awesome. But I mean, it was hard. Like even last year, it's like you all had the weeded, and that's come back, and now we got the 7-year weed. That's on the site. You've got the Bottled and Bond that we're drinking now. We've got looks like Southern Smoke Foundation had a Cabernet finish cask. I've not tried that specific one, but we've done 2 cab finished ones. Those are incredible products. And then, but where I was going with that too is that you will do have a discovery collection just in general, where you have the Bottled and Bond, you have the classic, and then I'm trying to remember what the third one is, a sherry finish, right? That's in there so there is a set. So anyone who's still on the fence, like, hey, I liked this, I want someone else to try it. They didn't get an advent calendar though. The discovery set are these 100 ml bottles, and make a great gift. That's what it was in our gift guide last year. So definitely, if you're a fan of this in the calendar, a product worth checking out and sending to somebody.
And it hasn't loaded yet, Brian, I don't think, but you also have the last of our peach brandy Bottled and Bond.
Oh gosh.
That's going to hit the site. I don't even know when, but
it shipped last
you'll
week.
Have about 90 bottles of that. And I know this is a bourbon crowd, but
that's okay.
Can't tell you how many bourbon groups we have presented with 6 or 7 samples, and Dallas Bourbon Club is a great example. We did, I don't know how many samples for them. We did the weeded, we did the double oak, we did the Bottled and Bond, the classic, the sherry, we did the whole lineup. And at the end, we said, all right, we can't come down here and not, because we're so excited about this, not put this on the table. But here is a sample of our peach brandy Bottled and Bond. And they were like, never been much of a brandy crowd, and we watched it. The samples went down. Somebody asked for the bottle to take a picture of it. And about 7 minutes later, Scott and I looked down, and the bottle was halfway empty.
Gosh.
They were like, wow, you've really changed our minds about peach brandy, brandy in general. So can't say enough good things about that one. And you alluded to it earlier, but once we dump the barrels of that peach brandy, we fill them with Jimmy Red. And every April, right before Derby season, we release our Jimmy Red finished in our own peach brandy barrels, and that is the perfect modern mint julep, because the mint julep was originally made with peach brandy, now known to be made with bourbon, but that mashup makes the most magical julep.
It really does.
I'll be honest, I think peach brandy by itself makes the most amazing mint julep, because you think about it, a little demerara syrup and some fresh mint, peaches and mint.
And the crushed ice makes it.
It's pretty magical.
If you don't stop, I'm gonna have to go make one of these when we get done with this. Is what I'm gonna have to go do.
And the last thing I'll mention is that we on our bottle shop on highwiredistilling.com, there is one terroir bundle left. We loaded 30 of these a couple weeks ago, and it is a bundle of 3 bottles, one from each farm in the series. So one from Plumfield Farm in Darlington, South Carolina, which is in the PD region. One from WP Rawl Farm, which is in Pelion, South Carolina. All of that grain was grown organically. And then one bottle from our Calhoun Co-op, which is 3 farms that work together and store grain together in St. Matthews and Cameron, South Carolina. So that 3-bottle bundle is an amazing way to experience the terroir that we're talking about. This is not the last terroir series. This was an experiment to see how many people we could drag down the rabbit hole with us, and hugely successful. Thursday night, we're doing a virtual tasting of those 3 spirits. And in the tasting room, if you are local to Charleston or within striking distance, you can come in and just enjoy that tasting flight of those 3 farms. And we'll put a map of South Carolina down in front of you and some fun farm stats. And then you can choose the one that you like the best.
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody mentioned earlier that we should be doing something that's got a, in a smaller format. Really would be ideal, kind of like our Discovery collection.
Our Discovery was too late to get it in a small pack for this year, but don't fear, it's
right.
not.
I mean, and that's something that you guys at Seelbach, I mean, of course, would be all over, and be able to kind of take the ride. Because like I say, we're just really getting it to the beginning of this, so we're super excited to see the response. And like I say, people go, "Oh, I don't have the palate." Whatever. It's like, you don't. With this, I can tell you, it hits you over the head. I mean, it's like, and we went through 12 samples, 4 barrels of each farm, and all like these 4 had this distinct flavor backbone, and these 4 had that, and these, it was like 3 very, very different across all barrels. It was pretty amazing. So, yeah.
Well, I know you said that you were going to close with that kind of thought, but I'd like to close with a different one, and I want to hear a little bit more about this cornbread mix.
Ooh,
oh yeah.
That is a left turn.
Oh yeah, well, Blake posted a picture of that recently. We were in DC together at Jack Rose at the Premier Drams, and it's pretty good.
Pretty good.
We're biased. It's very good. We we serve it. Brian, did you have some when you were at our place?
I don't think so.
Okay, so we serve we have a cast iron company called Smithy that makes these really beautiful pre-seasoned cast irons, and we worked with them on these little 6-inch skillets, and we serve it in the tasting room with some Benton's ham that's sliced like prosciutto.
Oh my God.
And sorghum butter.
Whipped sorghum butter. So you just make a little ham cornbread sandwich.
I gotta get back. Get back down there.
And so
the cornbread has this like cool magenta hue to it, and it really shares so many of the characteristics of the bourbon. It's really cool to taste them next to each other and understand how the flavor of the corn really translates into both a culinary item and a beverage, and just, it's really, I think one of my favorite things is watching somebody drink our bourbon for the first time, and watching people taste this cornbread for the first time is also really fun. But our bourbon kind of like I was saying earlier, it is the complexity of the sweetness of it is so different from any other whiskey I've ever had. And I think that my personal theory is that, the way our American diet has been trained to understand corn sweeteners has really sort of tainted our ability to understand sugar and raw sugar. And you think about all the different sweeteners available, there's agave and honey and all these different raw sugars, demerara's and just rich brown sugars. And those sugars have flavor. And I think that Jimmy Red Corn has a sweetness that has flavor. And I think that is one of the things that when people taste our spirits, they're trying to like muddle through the traditional bourbon flavor checklist. And they don't get very far down that checklist before they say something like, it's different. Some people say it's weird, and we don't take weird as a negative. We take that to mean this is making me think and consider what I am tasting. And that, watching somebody think through that and explore those flavors is really rewarding for us because we don't want it to be the same as everyone else's product.
Yeah. That's what I was hoping to kind of set you all up earlier with the meal. I was kind of hoping that where I was really going with it was whether you thought that yellow corn whiskeys were like eating at Denny's and like red corn is like eating at.
We're not.
Like I was hoping we were gonna like get to.
I will say this. This is a controversial statement. When you look at the world of corn, which is a report the U.S. Corn Lobby puts out every year, and I think their website is even called World of Corn. When we first started out in 2013, when I discovered this website, their statistics showed that less than 1% of all the corn grown in this country was consumed by humans. And that included high fructose corn syrup. That includes the alcohol beverage industry. That includes cornstarch, Cheetos,
cereal,
sweet corn, cereals. That's a huge category. Everything else is ethanol and plastics and animal feed.
And ethanol does not include spirits. Spirits are in that other.
Spirits are in the
human
human consumption.
Right.
And now it's 10%. I don't know how they skewed the data to get it from 1 to 10, but maybe that's the bourbon boom. I don't know. But I think what that tells us is that GMO corn has not been bred for flavor. It has been bred specifically for industries that are more concerned with yield and conversion rates and dollars, honestly, than with flavor. And that is not a knock on anyone that is using number 2 yellow dent corn. That is the bedrock of the bourbon industry, and we would never knock it because there is some amazing stuff out there. But it is the more that we kind of drink ours side by side against some others, just the more we recognize the complexity of the sweetness, the complexity of flavor, and just really the range of what Jimmy Red has to offer is just so different than anything else. And it's just a really fun ride. It's the right bottle to pick up when you want to have a contemplative spirit, when you really want to, it's just really have a good visit with a spirit.
Well, I think that what you mentioned earlier, Brian, asking about the cornbread, people now we're getting, obviously these are folks that know us and everything, but they're emailing or texting and going, this is the best cornbread I have ever had. And it's like, well, it's not just, box yellow, kind of type thing. The corn matters. And so like when we were in Oaxaca, because that's where all corn originated. And we went to a tortilla making village and we went house to house, where they were growing these different ancestral varietals, and we were eating tortillas from house to house, and it was amazing the flavors you were getting, the differences between those tortillas, and ultimately there's a whole world of discovery that's out there still. We just are sort of at the tip of things. So
and like I've been having to hold back this whole time, and we're not going to get into it. Like maybe another time, if you have a recording of it somewhere, like dig it up, or I'd like to get you back on sometime outside of this context, because where this conversation's almost gone a couple times, and what I found so fascinating when we were talking was you were talking before about like true heirloom grains or the pollination of grain, all these things. I don't remember if some of this stuff was for public consumption, if you're just kind of talking, but I found all of that super fascinating. And I thought you even maybe had talked about the tortilla thing, kind of a part of that conversation too. We won't get there. I don't want to like, because again, that was super long. We don't have to get into all that. But either way, I love hearing from you all, and I love talking to you guys. I apologize though, but I probably will start to have people email you about what farm the cornbread is from now. Okay, so you have to answer those questions too. Okay.
Calhoun Co-op, pretty much exclusively.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Glenn
Thanks,
Roberts.
Easy.
Yeah, Glenn agreed to mill it. We can't mill for cornmeal, so we got Anson Mills to mill our corn for us for this cornbread. We just got 200 pounds more of the meal today. We're about to run out of cornbread again, so we're about to,
everybody got to go order it now.
Yeah, I kind of lobbed it out there thinking Blake might be like, we need to get some of that for the Seelbach website, and he didn't quite.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm like, dude, I think you could sell some cornbread mix with that whiskey,
or like in a gift basket or something like that. So, but I mean, I have a coffee background, which is nothing like culinary necessarily. It's not like the wine industry ever, but even this point I find really interesting. I'd always like to do taste tests with people. So I know that a lot of the folks who are here and have this calendar are able to try this compared to blue corns, yellow corns, other whiskeys that we have in this calendar. But just get the cornbread and then find a local regular cornbread too. And for the holidays or something, just bake them side by side. Get another taste test where you can taste, the grains in a different format than tasting them in a whiskey, and then also taste them with the whiskey,
Yeah. A pro tip for the cornbread is that if you go on our website, we have the online bottle shop that's fulfilled out of DC. And then we have our local pickup area. But a little known fact is that we can ship non-alcohol products from the local pickup area, and the shipping is going to be cheaper from the local pickup area for cornbread. So if you're just interested in cornbread, that's a good place to go to get that. And then if you want to pick up a couple bottles at the same time, definitely go to the online bottle shop.
Yeah.
And I put that link here too, guys, if you want to see, because then that one set is still in this, that one terroir set is still in the store. And then the link to no, it's not. It's gone. I'm sorry. Terroir set's gone, but the cornbread.
I want you to comment.
Comment if you were the one who picked it up. I mean, it had to have been somebody who's on the stream.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, well, I mean, it should be exciting. I mean, and we'll do it again, Brian. I mean, we should get, there again, like I say, we just need to catch up, and you need to come back down. And when you got, and you don't have to wait till you're going to Seabrook. You can just.
I know. I don't remember
from Kentucky on Breeze Airways now. So.
I don't remember what I was doing when Blake came down, but I was a little surprised that I didn't come down. But also, Bowen's Island's one of my favorite little spots just to go and eat. And I forget what it is. It's their shrimp or something there that I just can't get enough of. And so I'll get any excuse to come down there and eat and drink a little bit. So y'all, I really appreciate you taking your time. I know it took a little bit more than maybe we would have expected, but again, always great hearing what you all have going on and the story for the folks who hadn't heard it. And just, I feel like I could listen to you all talk forever about stuff, because we talk to a lot of brands and we do talk to some distilleries as well. But I love talking to smaller producers that are just really into it, to be into it and have a lot of knowledge to provide, because some of the bigger guys, there's stuff they can't say, or there's certain ways they have to say it. And then some of the, the non-distilling producers, there's only just so much to say. And so I like being able to get to the side of things. I like hearing how things have kind of changed over the years, where things are going. It's exciting. I don't think I even knew that you all had stuff about to be 10, because what did we have last? We had something. I thought it was like a 7-year. I don't know, something to 7. I think I was thinking 7, 8, maybe. It's like towards that top. We didn't do it.
Released.
Yeah. And y'all, the single barrel you picked, last year, Brian, when you know that barrel, like Dave Jennings was flipping out, and he said that might actually be better than the 7-year-old. It was a 6-year-old.
I love that barrel so much.
% corn. You know?
Yeah, I never got to try his. I know he followed up afterwards with a barrel that was like kind of, I think you remember it being similar, because I sent him a bottle of that barrel because I remember saying, Dave, I think you'll really like this profile. And I remember him really enjoying it. And he picked something afterwards. I didn't get a bottle of it. I might have to shake his chain a little bit to see. I don't think I got a bottle of it and see, because I heard that was really good too. And put it up, put a good fight that I picked.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we'll have to figure out which farms you guys picked. It's 2 different farms probably, but yeah.
That's right. Cool. Well, we got some folks in here saying thanks to you all. I want to say thanks to you all as well for all the conversation, for your time tonight. And I look forward to hearing more. I look forward to 2026 and what else we can, what other products we can put out.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys all tuning in. And Brian, thank you as always. It's always great to you're actually one of my favorite Instagram little stories whenever I see you posting, because you always keep it energized and fun. So thanks for the good conversation, and thanks for all the great questions. We really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Guys, thanks for tuning in. As a quick reminder, we've got several more of these that we're going to be doing throughout the month. I don't know where my notes are. Here they are. So following up after this one, next one's going to be on the 11th. So we got 11th, 17th, 19th, 21st, 22nd, and then a pre-recording on the 24th, excuse me. Blake says he might pop in live. I think he'd be silly to do so. But again, appreciate your all's time. Everyone, thanks for tuning in to another live stream, and we'll see you all in the next one. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, y'all.